When?
Just now.
Ew.
We're outside. Bird crapped on me. We're supposed to be under an umbrella. Didn't work. Well, welcome to the 7 o'clock talk. And tonight we're going to talk about the cholesterol paradox because, oh Lord, how many of our patients come in on cholesterol meds?
Few of them.
And she's the hormone queen. She loves hormones. How important is cholesterol, good cholesterol,
Very important to
to
the
your
hormones.
hormones?
You have to have cholesterol, good cholesterol.
And so, what does cholesterol give us? Some diseases that cholesterol ties in with:
Heart disease.
PCOS,
Yeah.
erectile dysfunction.
All the sexual dysfunctions.
It also has your nerves, because if your nerves don't have, if you don't have cholesterol, you can't take the myelin. You can't make the myelin sheath around the nerve.
So like
So
MS.
MS, neuropathy, all of that, all of those types of things. And so, what's high cholesterol? We're going to get into the paradox now.
Like the number?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anymore.
So medically, they say if you're above 200, you're high. Your cholesterol is high. And then the 1950s test, the old tech, is HDLs, LDLs, triglycerides, and you might get VLDLs or remnant LDLs. And so, what we know now is what's important about your cholesterol. It's not the number, but what? What are the
The
characteristics?
size.
Size matters.
Size matters. And the amount and size. You want them to be fluffy so they can't get through the walls.
So, if you're looking at your cholesterol, if you're looking at the old one that says HDLs, LDLs, VLDLs, and triglycerides, let's give you some secrets here. If you look at your total cholesterol to HDL number, that should be less than 3. That ratio should be less than like 3 to 1. If you're starting to see numbers get higher than that, then you are at risk for cardiovascular disease. Um, when we're looking at this, the big thing that we want to do is there are new tests. There's a new test that we've been doing for years now called an NMR. And the problem with the way that we treat cholesterol traditionally, medically, however you want to look at it, is that we just look at the LDL and the total number and we say, hey, if your number's above 200, we need to give you a statin, and we cut it out. And that's actually not true, because you've heard me reference the blue zones before. So if you look at the blue zones, typically their cholesterols are higher than 200. A lot of them are higher than 250. But the difference is the LDL is this big, fluffy, buoyant type, and there aren't a lot of them. So if you think of Gracie's created a noisemaker. She's throwing the ball with the dog, and the dog goes ballistic on the ball. So anyway, if you look at these LDLs and you think of your blood vessel as a straw, you don't want to have a lot of particles in the straw. If you're drinking a slushy and it's real thick, what happens when you try to suck it through the straw?
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Suck, but nothing happens. Can't get it up.
And so you can't have a large number of these particles. The other thing is when you look at a blood vessel, let's take my pen and let's say that my pen was hollow. And so if my pen was hollow, and there's 2 layers to this pen, and there's one layer that is the inside, the intima layer, and that has little gaps in it. And if you have these real small, hard, dense LDLs, it goes into that layer, and then it starts to create a
Foam cell.
foam cell. And that starts to obstruct the blood vessel. And when that obstructs the blood vessel, blood pressure goes high. So, how is cholesterol related to blood pressure? If you have lots of these small, dense, hard particles, lots of the ApoB 100 or the LP little a, if you have lots of these particles, then you are actively, most likely, scarring and causing that blood vessel to shrink.
Hardens your arteries, and then your heart has to pump harder to get the blood through it.
Yep. And we typically start to see that in people who have what we call systolic hypertension. So if your top number is above 120, then you're starting to get what is called systolic hypertension.
And that's usually occurs before the age of 50. That's the worst sign prior to age 50, but after age 50, then you should really be concerned with your diastolic pressures.
And your diastolic is what we normally say is 80.
And that's your resting heart rate.
So you need to know what these particles are. And then once you know what the particles are, then you can start to do something about it. And so, real quick, what are some great things that people can do to start to change their cholesterol number? That's easy and free, and you can do at home.
Just exercise.
Exercise
Cut
is a
out
big
sugar.
one. Yep, cut out sugar. Control insulin. Hyperinsulinemia causes the LDL to oxidize, and that's what makes it smaller, and that's what makes it burrow in.
Decrease your salt, because you actually make fat from salt, or sugar from salt, which creates also fat.
Yeah.
And then you want to get rid of the trans fats and fake fats and oxidized fats.
So basically what she's saying is then in your diet you need to have lots of colors, lots of vegetables, and good sources of protein. And it's very important for these things, because if you think that you can switch from Coke to Coke Zero or Pepsi to Pepsi Zero, whatever the zeros are, it doesn't work that way. When you tax the liver has to either make energy or clean or produce cholesterol. And your liver produces 85% of your cholesterol that you need per day. That's how important cholesterol is. And so, free, easy ways. I should make a guide and just have people download the guide.
The cat wants to play ball.
Oh, I'm sure if that cat got a hold of that tennis ball with the dog, not going to end well. Anyway, so if you want to control insulin, one of the ways to control insulin is to get a good night's sleep. When you get 8 hours of sleep consistently for 2 to 3 nights in a row, let's qualify that a little bit. So I say 8 hours of sleep. You really need to be going to bed earlier and getting up without an alarm clock. And when you get up without the alarm clock, you should feel good and rested. If you do that 2, 3, 4 nights in a row, you resensitize your cells to insulin threefold. That's on par with metformin. So you don't have to take a drug. You don't have to do all that stuff that causes other issues. Your foods, we've already talked about those foods. Greens, reds, yellows, all of that stuff. Don't have your community stress you out, because if you're stressed, you raise cortisol. If you raise cortisol, you eventually raise blood sugar and insulin. And then if you have all of these things in check and under control, then that's when you start to see somebody like us and you start to resensitize yourselves to insulin. You start to get that good cortisol curve. And that leads to people just feeling better, getting their energy back. I mean, if you're tired, you have high cholesterol, and your joints ache, and you have autoimmune diseases, then you really got to start to, release.
Why did she drop it so easy for you? And then she picks it back up again. Drop it.
So anyway, that all leads into each other. And that's what leads to high cholesterol is a symptom of a bigger problem, typically. Hormones off, PCOS, all of these things interrelate. And that's when you have to start to, her book that she's studying for the advanced A4M for hormones and stuff like that, and cholesterol was one of the first chapters, and they talked about this stuff. But they talk about the tsunami. If you've had health crises, your ability to reverse all the damage decreases. The best time to start to get on that is when you start to see the little indicators. Is your blood pressure off? Or is your diet horrible? If your diet's horrible, we can get you hooked up with some health coaches and get that stuff straightened out and start to really change those things. But the paradox in cholesterol is if you have healthy cholesterol, the higher your cholesterol, the longer you live. And you can look at that. You can look that up in the National Institutes of Health. You can look that up in the Blue Zones book. You can look that up everywhere. Any place that starts to actually dig into the cholesterol issue will tell you that there is a discordant. So when you start to read the discordant part of it, they're saying, oh, these people that have these LDLs that are large, above 2100 nanometers or whatever, don't worry, there's no quiz on this. But if they're larger than that and their number is less than the other number, then you're going to live a very long, happy, healthy life. At least cholesterol is not going to take you out, so it's probably not going to be cardiovascular disease. And that's the thing that we have to start to figure out as Americans, is that how can we start to change these things so that when our cholesterol is high, it's in a good pattern. And that's what you need to know. So it's all about the pattern. And so great things, talk to your doctor and have your doctor do an NMR. Have your doctor do an LPP. If your doctor doesn't know what those are,
Call us, we can help.
call us, we can help, because your doctor's not keeping up with the latest research. He doesn't know what the latest things are. And I'm not faulting the doctor, and I'm not calling a medical doctor ignorant or anything like that. They're busy. They take care of life and death. They don't take care of optimal health. That's what we do. There are some medical doctors out there starting to change, but all in all, they don't know what an LPP is. They don't know what an NMR is. And those are the numbers that are important. Those are the numbers that you have to know. And just to let you know, the LPP test now has become so prevalent that if you want to stratify your risk, this gives us homocysteine, this gives us insulin, it gives us all the types of LDLs, and it's what, $300, $315?
Yeah, and it gives us extra majority homocysteine and
Yes,
insulin.
insulin. So she draws the blood.
And actually, talking about risk, so they, MDs usually score you on 5 different things, which scores you on the risk of cardiovascular disease, none of which actually
matter.
So you can actually score a 0 on all that risk. And most people, I think they said 50% of the people in the hospital with an event had 0 risk. 75% of those had normal cholesterol levels, or like not high risk cholesterol levels.
We all know the people that, I just got checked out by the doctor and I'm doing great. My cholesterol's great. My artery calcium score is fabulous.
And then they have a heart attack.
And then they have a heart attack in the parking lot, because it's not the number. That's the thing that we all need to understand and ask more of our doctors.
If your cholesterol is high, you don't necessarily want to run to a cholesterol med, because if they're big and fluffy, they don't put you at a greater risk. You want them to be big and fluffy.
That's why that's the paradox.
And we have seen there are a few MDs that actually go one step further and do another test and realize that those are fluffy and they don't put you on meds, which kudos to those docs.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's the difference between going to a body shop that takes care of all kinds of cars,
or hot rod shop,
or if you go to a hot rod shop. The hot rod shop's going to dig in a lot deeper. That's what we do. We dig in a lot deeper, and if you want to do the test with us, great. We'll give you the results and you can discuss them with your physician. If you want to know how to take care of those things naturally, normally, and start to work on that, we'll help you do that as well. We're here for you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us or contact us, Dr. Miller at Integrated Health of Indiana, or you can message us via Facebook, Mrs. Indiana Back Doc at gmail.com. We're here to help you straighten out your PCOS, get rid of your tiredness, get rid of your digestive issues. You wouldn't believe how many people we have that we just start to address their dietary issues and they feel better. We just recently had one that went from 160 some odd symptoms down to 32 in how many months? Like 4?
4.
It's not hard. It really isn't. So
it's just an awareness.
It's an awareness, and you have to be willing to do the work. We can't do the work for you. Our health coaches can't do the work for you. We can show you the path, the light, but it's up to you to make the decisions for yourself. Thank you. Have a great evening.